Hi guys, welcome back to another e-learning video. This video will be over how to use the Pythagorean Theorem in order to find a missing length. And the length that we're going to focus on today is the hypotenuse length being missing. So I'm going to start with something that's the most basic thing I can do. So I talked about this in the last video of how this actually proves out to work, but we're going to take this side and we're going to call it A. This side's going to be called B, and this side's going to be called C. So just a little reminder, opposite of this right angle, this is your hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longest side, and we always call that side C. Then the other two sides are A and B. So the hypotenuse is on the opposite side here of your right angle. So here's your right angle, opposite of it is your hypotenuse, and you're always going to call that C. Then you're going to label the other sides A and B. So I talked about how you can actually prove that this will work. So if you said that A is 3, it'd be 3 squared, because you're just filling in A as a 3. And here, if you say B is a 4, then fill in 4 for a B. So I put 3 in for A, I put 4 in for B, I'm going to put 5 in for C. And I showed that this will work. I showed that 3 squared was 9, and 4 squared is 16, and 5 squared is 25. So that actually does work. It'll always work like that. This side plus this side, excuse me, this side squared plus this side squared will equal the hypotenuse squared. And we're going to actually try out a problem that has a missing hypotenuse. So let's try out one with some different numbers here. Let's say this was a 4, this was a 5, and you didn't know what this was yet. The Pythagorean Theorem, again, I'll just write the reminder of what it is up here so you can see exactly what it is that I'm filling it in. So as I'm filling it in, so A is 4. I'm going to go ahead and put 4 in for A. B is 5. Put a 5 in for B. But the thing that I don't know yet, I don't know this number. So I'm just going to leave it as a C because I actually don't know it yet. I know that A is a 4 and B is a 5. So I can actually, instead of writing those letters, I can write the numbers that they are. But I don't know this yet, so I'm just going to leave it as C. So let's go ahead and calculate things that we actually have in front of us. 4 squared is 4 times 4, that's 16. 5 squared is 5 times 5, that's 25. So I got 16 for 4 squared, 25 for 5 squared. If you add them together, this would be done on a calculator. You get 41. So we have 41 there. And then now what do you do? The last step of finding out what this missing letter here actually it is, what number this actually is you're going to do the square root of both sides. So because you had a squared there, and we want to get this all by itself, you're going to do the opposite of squaring a number. You're going to square root it. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. It's going to be C, and this is a total. Type it in your calculator and C. So you're going to have to use whatever calculator you want and find that out. And there are good calculators online. In order to find them out. .4. Go back to my whiteboard. Okay, 6.4. That's what I got. So that means that this is a 6.4. So it's not perfect because I rounded down my decimal, but it means that 4 squared plus 5 squared equals 6.4 squared, because C is 6.4. So let's try another one. Let's just try at least a couple here so we get the hang of this. And we'll try to write a process for you guys. Okay, so let's try with some new numbers. Let's try 7, 8, and then we don't know our hypotenuse. So again, I'm only going over how to find it when your hypotenuse number is missing. So we know that A is a 7, so fill in a 7 for A. We know that B is an 8, so fill in an 8 for B. But we don't know what C is yet. We don't know this one, so I'm just going to leave it as a C, and we're going to try to figure out what it is. So 7 squared is 7 times 7. That would be 49. 8 squared, maybe I can write this little square for you a little bit better. 8 squared is 8 times 8. That's 64. So I knew that A was 7, so I put it in there. And then I did a calculation. I said, well, if A is 7, then it would be 7 squared, and that's 49. I said, okay, B is an 8, so if I put the 8 in there, 8 squared is 64. And then at this point is when you're going to add them together. Okay? And that's just totally on a calculator. That's okay. 113. You're e-learning at home, so no problem using a calculator. And then the last step you're going to do is you're going to try to get C all by itself, and C is being squared. So if you want to get rid of this little squared, the opposite of squaring something is square rooting it. So we're going to square root both sides. You're going to have C equals whatever the square root of 113 is. I'll go ahead and try that out on my calculator here. I get 10.6. Okay, so that means that 10.6 is what the length is. It's this side length is 10.6. And if you try it out in the formula, 7 squared plus 8 squared plus 10.6 squared, it should come out pretty close. It's not going to be perfect because we had to round this down to 10.6, but it should work very, very close. So let's write that into steps for you all so you have some perfect notes. So create some steps here. So step 1, substitute numbers in for A and B. Remember, we took the number for A and we filled it in. I'll show you that again. A squared is the beginning of it, and whatever number it is, if it's a 7, go ahead and substitute a 7 in there where A goes. Then the next step, also put one in for B. So it's B squared. So whatever B is an 8. So we're going to put an 8 in there for B. You're going to substitute that in as well. And leave it as C squared. So remember, this other side is a C squared to begin with, and you're going to leave it as C squared. Okay, calculate. Oh, excuse me. Let me write that out correctly. Calculate A squared and B squared. And what I mean by that is whatever number is in here, you need to actually calculate this and this. And remember, we went ahead and did that. Okay. And then the last thing, well, second to last thing, is you're going to add A squared and B squared answer. Excuse my handwriting. Tough to write with the stylus here. So you're going to add A squared and B squared answers. So we did A squared, we did B squared, like it said to do on step 3. It said calculate A squared and B squared, so I did. Step 4 is you need to add those answers together. So you need to add 49 and 64 together. And I ran out of room. I'm going to go up here. 113 is what it was. So this calculation, when you added those together, adding those answers, you get 113. And then I'm going to show it over here. Step 5 is to square root. So square root, and then we will have our answer. We said it was C equals, and I think it was 10.6. So square root of 113, I believe, was 10.6. So those are all your steps. Substitute numbers in for A and B, whatever the numbers are. So A was a 7, B was an 8. You fill those in. Second step, make sure you do leave this as a C squared. Don't touch it. Just leave it alone over there as what it is. Step 3, calculate what A squared and B squared are. So A squared was this, B squared was this. And then step 4, add those answers together. And this is what you get. And then step 5, go ahead and square root your number here, and you will have your answer. That is how you find the missing hypotenuse length using the Pythagorean theorem.